All right, good afternoon, traders. Today is June 16th, 2025. My name is John Carignan. I am the lead instructor here at the BYOB Trading Room. Hey, let's go take a look at some charts. Before we take a look at some charts, let's take a look at how I did for profits for today. Okay, so pull this over, get the P&L. All right, so there's 8K right there on those 600 puts. You can see I bought those. Okay, on the peaks, sold into the dips. Okay, started right here. Notice where we're going up, 10-minute uptrend. Not buying any puts on an uptrend. Okay, you get two sword candles right next to each other. Okay, now I'm starting to buy some puts, and I'm taking profit into the dips, reloading on the peaks. Okay, there's 8K on those. Those are 0 DTE, 600 put, 600 strike puts. Next one, 4 DTE, 605 strike calls. Okay, notice I'm buying the breakout 10-minute candle, rises up over the opening range. Okay, here's the opening range right there. Breaches the opening range. I'm buying some calls and I'm selling into the rally. All right, only to reload, okay, as price fades back to the opening range. All right, so there's 6K there. Next one, 584 strike puts, 4 days till expiration. Okay, looks like those were sold short, so I just bought the cover at the peak, at the top there. Next one, 2700 on 605 calls, 0 DTE. Okay, bought the dip right here at VWAP, sold into the rally, back up over VWAP, and then that's it. Okay, just closed them out. That's 27K there. 2,700. All right, 625 calls, $162 on those. All right, position I got 10 calls. Okay, bought the dip, sold the peaks, and then reloaded. All right, 32 DTE, same thing. Sold the peak, reloaded on the dip. Same thing on the 630 calls, 25 days till expiration. Sold the peak, reloaded on the dip. Same thing on the 17 DTE, 625 calls. Sold the peak. I need to reload that dip right there. Let's go ahead and get one now. All right, and 620 calls, 11 DTEs, $8 on those. All right, again, sold the peak, reload on the dip. Okay, minus 318. I had some calls that were, these were hedges. All right, so this was a hedge for my other calls. All right, so you can see I'm buying the dip on those. Okay, buying the dip on those. I foresee price coming back to 598. Probably even 595. We'll see what happens on the game plan here. Okay, let's move this over. You see that? Let's take a look at the 10-minute trend as we come into the close. 10-minute trend looks like a flat consolidation, closer to a downtrend, looking for continuation into tomorrow's open. All right, so I'm looking for another red candle into tomorrow's open, and I'll be looking for something that's not a bottoming tail candle, something that's not a spinning top or a doji, and no green candles. Okay, no green candles, no bottoming tails, no spinning tops, and no doji candles, because that dojis and spinning tops equal bulls and bears are satisfied with the price action. All right, so I'm not interested in those. All right, and I'm not interested in green candles because that shows bullish control. Not interested in bottoming tail candles because that shows bullish control. All right, so that's what I'll be looking for on Tuesday morning when we open up. Don't forget, we got FOMC coming out at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. Thursday, we have the day off. All right, so Thursday we're off, and FOMC at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. Little presser. Mr. Powell's going to speak and defend his actions at 2:30. Okay, so there's SPY. All right, so there's SPY on the 2-hour chart. What do we have on the 2-hour? Let's take a peek at it. 2-hour, we have ourselves a 2-hour uptrend. 2-hour uptrend, 10-minute downtrend coming into the close. On the daily chart, we still have a daily uptrend. Higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish trap. That is a bullish environment. Okay, closing up over the 17 EMA. That's the green dots. That is a bullish environment. Okay, closing up in quadrant 4. Okay, up here in quadrant 4, these are the quad lines. Okay, up here in quadrant 4, that's a bullish environment. That's bullish. Making higher lows and higher highs is an uptrend. That's also a bullish environment. Up over the all-time high anchored VWAP. That's bullish. All right? What do I like? I like 10-minute uptrends over VWAP. All right? I like them inside of 2-hour uptrends that are inside of daily uptrends that are inside of weekly uptrends or weekly candles that are moving up that are inside of monthly uptrends all over the all-time high anchored VWAP. Okay? Those 10-minute uptrends are going to last longer. You're going to have a better win rate. They're going to succeed more often. They're going to go further, and they're going to succeed and make you more profits on those when you're in this bullish environment like this. Okay, 10-minute downtrends will be counter trend. They'll tend to fail more often. They won't have as high of a win rate, and you'll look for those to probably not go as far. All right, so I'm looking for 10-minute uptrends over VWAP. 10-minute uptrend is defined as the 3 EMA on the 10-minute chart up over the 8 EMA. So here we have a 10-minute uptrend coming into the close. Notice this one is up over VWAP. All right, so a little pop here into the close. All right, so there's SPY on the 10-minute. All right, let's take a look at QQQ. Look at QQQ on the daily chart with the quad lines. Okay, we got a higher low and a higher high, closing over the uptrend line, closing over the bullish trap, closing over, excuse me, the 17 EMA. All of that is bullish. Closing up in quadrant 4, that's bullish. Over the all-time high anchored VWAP, okay, that's bullish. Making higher lows and higher highs, that's an uptrend. Also considered bullish. Okay, so QQQ getting it done. All right, up here in quadrant 4, that's bullish. Let's take a look at FNGB. FNGB, again, just like the others, higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish trap, closing over the 17, closing over the uptrend line, closing up in quadrant 4, moving up, holding the higher ground. All right, that's a bull. All of those things I just listed, that's bullish environment. All up over the all-time high anchored VWAP, that's bullish. Okay, FNGB. Making higher lows, there's a low, there's a higher low, and making higher highs. Okay, that is a bullish environment. That's FNGB. Let's take a look at IWM. All right, IWM's got a higher low and a higher high, closing just over a bearish cross right here, just over a bullish cross, really. Closing over the 17. Okay, both of that is bullish. Trying to close over the uptrend line, not quite getting it done. All right, but who's to say that's where that uptrend line goes? Okay, we could probably take this and swing it out some. Let's move it over just a little bit. Okay, I don't think that's quite where it goes, but that's where we are right now. All right, so closing under that uptrend line, closing over the all-time high anchored VWAP, that's the pink line, closing over the midpoint, okay, that's neutral. So all of this is just neutral, okay, because we're closing, we're in the neutral zone. Closing over the all-time high anchored VWAP is bullish. If they close over that bullish trap, that's bullish. And closing over the 17 is also bullish. Okay, you can see price action moves up, consolidates to the right, and then breaks out. Now they're having a pullback, testing the support that they just, testing the resistance to see if it holds as support. I think I mentioned this earlier in the morning. Okay, we're watching for this. All right, for the support, for the resistance to now hold as support. Okay, so we're getting a little lift off with a little higher low and a higher high on IWM on the daily chart. Okay, all of that's bullish, just not in the bullish territory yet. That would be the upper third. Bearish territory would be the lower third. So we're just meandering right now, right here at the midpoint. Okay, price goes up. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, price goes up, all right, and gives it up. That's neutral. Okay, price goes down and gives it up. That's neutral. So we're just neutral. Okay, now when we go down, when we go up, give it up and more, that's bearish. But if we give that back up, we're back to neutral again. Okay, so there's IWM. Okay, IWM is acting bullish. Okay, it's just in the neutral zone at this time. Showing an inverted head and shoulders. This being the head, right shoulder, left shoulder. We'll see if the right arm can extend up to where the left arm left off. Right up there in the upper 30%. There's IWM. Let's take a look at Diamond Dow. All right, Diamond Dow is a higher low and a higher high, closing over, closing inside a bearish trap, that's neutral, closing over the 17 EMA, that's bullish, closing under the uptrend line, that's neutral, closing over the downtrend line, that's bullish, closing over the all-time high anchored VWAP, that's bullish, closing in the upper third, that's bullish. Making higher lows and higher highs, that's bullish. Consolidating and holding the higher ground, also bullish. All right, so there's Diamond Dow. Let's take a look at our technicals. T2122. Look at this. Nice rip this morning, opening up inside the buy zone. We made our appearance inside the overbought zone for just enough to peek through the door, and then the bears shut the door on us. And you can see we spent the rest of the day consolidating over the prior consolidation. That's bullish. Okay, again, you can see consolidation right through here over the prior consolidation up here in the buyer's chop zone. Hopefully we got a higher low. Notice we got a higher low here. And what do we produce? A higher high. Notice we got another higher low here. Hopefully we produce another higher high. So maybe another move up tomorrow. We'll see. Got a nice little rally coming into the close there. All right, it's T2123. Let's take a look at T21. That was T2122. T2123. All right, bullish gap up that did not get filled by the bears. That's always a bullish environment. If we look at the price action, okay, you can see that price action, all right, has moved up and is holding the higher ground. See, it's not moving up and giving it up. It's holding the higher ground. That's a bullish environment. Anytime you see, okay, bullish gap ups that don't get filled by the bears, that is a bullish clue. That's a bullish environment. Okay, so gap up, a little buying program happened all morning and afternoon. and then they took an early lunch and left for the day right there. Okay, price action is up over 200 SMA. That's bullish. Up over a prior all-time high. That's bullish. Price action's making higher lows, okay, and higher highs. That's bullish, okay. Didn't quite make a higher high today, but still holding that higher ground. 3-bar chart, same product, 3-bar chart. 3 more green candle bars up here, holding the higher ground. Notice the consolidation forming over the prior consolidation. Got a little 6-bar hold up here over this 8-bar hold or 10-bar hold right there. That's actually on top of all of this consolidation through there. Okay, so consolidation over prior consolidation is a bullish environment. Okay, so looking good there. T2123 3-bar chart. Still underneath this. Let's take a look at the 3-bar. We're not on the 3-bar. Let's take a look at over the 200 SMA. That's bullish. Up over a prior all-time high. Also bullish. Making higher lows. Okay, no higher lows yet. But here's some higher highs right there. Making higher highs. That's bullish. Let's take a look at FNGB. All right, little. Okay, so Friday was not so good. Little sell-off underneath underneath the 200. Price action. Look at this. Gap up. There's a bullish environment right there. All right, you know you're looking for calls. Anytime you see gaps not getting filled, okay, bullish environment. Gap up, didn't get filled by the bears. Let's look for bullish price action for tomorrow. Okay, got a little higher low, make a little higher high. See, here's a low, make a higher low and a higher high. Look at price action move up and hold the higher ground. Okay, it's up. Okay, it's up, and then we hold the higher ground. That's bullish over VWAP. That's bullish over the 200. That's bullish. All right, up over. Let me pan out some so you can see it. Up over the all-time high. That's bullish. Up over the uptrend. That's bullish. Again, price action moves up, holds all of this higher ground. That's a bullish environment. Okay, FNGB. That's bullish. All right, so let's take a look at a few sectors. Start off with XLE. All right, XLE, when we opened this morning, I thought maybe that could be an exhaustion move. And we'll see what we got here. We got, looks like a higher low and a higher high. That's nice to see. Closing over a bullish trap. That's bullish. Over the 17, that's bullish. Over downtrend line 1 and 2, that's bullish. Over the midpoint, that's bullish. Caught up, knocking on the door of the 3-year high anchored VWAP. Okay, that's bullish. All right, if you're knocking on the door of the all-time high, all right, that's bullish. You're making higher lows and you're making higher highs. That's bullish. That's an uptrend. That's bullish right there. Okay, is this ready yet? Not quite. Still not in the lower third. That's good. Not in the upper third. Okay, so that makes it just neutral through there. But notice we are having a more bullish environment than we saw a couple weeks ago. Okay, price action, look, making a higher high. There's a high, makes a higher high. All right, now we need it to hold the higher ground. All right, so it needs to stay up there. Okay, I don't want to see it pull back and make an equal low right back here. Okay, so XLE is looking good up over the midpoint. All right, so that's XLE. That's in an uptrend, and it's acting bullish. It's just not there yet. Not in the upper third, and not over that 3-year, excuse me, all-time high anchored VWAP. All right, let's take a look at USO. Yeah, a little exhaustion move. I thought that might be. Got a lower high and a lower low. But we closed over the bullish trap. That's bullish. Over the 17, that's bullish. Over the downtrend line, also bullish. And over the 3-year high anchored VWAP, also bullish. Closing in quadrant 4, that's also bullish up there. Okay, again, I don't want this to be an exhaustion move, so need them to hold this higher ground. So need them to take a hold of the upper third and hold it up there. There's USO. We'll see if they can get it done over the course of this week. There's USO. UNG. UNG's in a downtrend. Okay, UNG in a downtrend. They take out that little high right there, they'll have an uptrend. It's not a very high bar that we set to make that uptrend, but that's what it is. There's a little peak, okay, that rises up over the 17. Today's price action, higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish cross, over the 17, those are bullish, up over the 12-month high anchored VWAP. That's not a very high bar that we set right there, okay, because there's the all-time high. You can see up around 137. This 12-month high only goes up as high as 27. Okay, so not a very high bar, but they are bullish. All right, they a higher low and a higher high, and closing over the bullish cross and closing over the 17. They're still in a downtrend, but they're moving up. All right, so they're up over this uptrend line and they're up over the backside of this downtrend line. So UNG trying to put up a fight, bulls trying to push price higher. We'll see what happens with that. That's UNG. Okay, still don't have a higher high, so it's not ready for me to get bullish until we start taking out all of this neutral zone stuff. Okay, I want to see it up over 1921 for me to get bullish on UNG. Now it may get bullish and trade on up to there, all right, but I need to see it get up there and hold, and then we can be bullish on UNG. All right, not to say that it's not going to get there in a nice bullish move from 17 clear up to 20. All right, there's UNG. Let's take a look at GLD. GLD almost made a new all-time high. Came 3 cents short of making a new all-time high on Friday. Today's candle is lower high and a lower low, closing in a bullish trap. Okay, that's bullish over the 17. Bullish over the all-time high anchored VWAP. That's bullish over the uptrend line. Bullish up in quadrant 4. That's bullish, showing an inverted head and shoulders and making higher lows and higher highs. All right, that's an uptrend. All of that is bullish on GLD. Let's take a look at silver. Silver making a higher low and a higher high, closing over a bullish. Is that over? Over a bullish trap. That's bullish. Over the 17. That's bullish. Moving up, holding that higher ground. Hey, watch this one for a breakout. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 days hold. All right, give it a couple more days, and I think you get a breakout. If you don't get a breakout tomorrow, I think within a few days you're going to get a breakout. It's silver, so silver is one of those charts that should probably be viewed on a 2-day time frame, maybe even a 3-day time frame, if you really want to see the moves in silver, because they're kind of slow. All right, so there's SLV. All right, up here in quadrant 4, that's bullish. Up over this is a 6-month high anchored VWAP, also doubles as a 12-year high anchored VWAP. Okay, about 5 days ago, they put in a new 12-year high right there. Okay, so up over that 12-year high anchored VWAP, that's bullish. Making higher lows and higher highs, that's bullish. Holding the higher ground, also bullish. Let's take a look at SMH. All right, SMH up here in quadrant 4 is bullish over the trap, over the 17, over the all-time high anchored VWAP, making higher lows, higher highs, uptrend. Got a price action, moves up, holds the higher ground, and has a breakout up into quadrant 4. All of that is bullish. All right, that's looking good. SXLK. Did XLK do it today? $243.76. New all-time high for XLK today. Okay, I don't need to... If it's making a new all-time high, okay, you don't really need to say anything else, okay? There's nothing any more bullish than a new all-time high, okay? It just doesn't get any better than that. Okay? If you hear new all-time high, it doesn't get any better than that. Okay? So there's XLK, new all-time high. XLF, quadrant 4, that's bullish, all right? Closing under the bearish, closing in the bearish trap, neutral, closing under the 17, neutral, all right? Making the higher lows and higher highs, that's bullish. If they take out this low, they'll have a downtrend, all right? They're still up in the upper third, so that's bullish. They're still over the all-time high anchored VWAP, that's bullish. Look at the price structure, okay? You guys can already see it, all right? It's moving up, okay, and holding the higher ground. That's bullish, all right? XLF, bullish. Let's take a look at IYT. All right, IYT got a higher low and a higher high, closing inside a bearish trap. All right, that's bullish. Closing, well, that's kind of neutral. Closing over the 17, that's bullish. Closing under the uptrend line, that's kind of neutral. Closing under, but knocking on the door of the all-time high anchored VWAP, that's kind of neutral. Failed to make a higher high here. Well, we made this high a higher high. Couldn't quite get this high done. So, again, we're moving up and holding the higher ground. That's bullish. We're just not up here in the bullish territory in the upper third, okay? We're kind of struggling to make those higher highs. Making a higher high than this one was nice, but that wasn't a very high bar to set, okay? It was really low and pathetic, okay? If they'd have made it over this one, that would have been something magnificent, but they didn't do magnificent, all right? They really just, they managed to win a game of checkers, so big deal, all right? So right there's IYT. Still consolidating up here in the upper quadrants, not in quadrant 4, not in the upper third, but up here over the midpoint. It's looking good. It's got some bullish nature to it, all right? But not enough for me to say I'd like to buy the transports. Okay, so that's it for me for today. Take some questions in the room. If there's no questions, I'll see you guys all tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll do it again. All right? Thank you, everybody. You all have a wonderful afternoon.